And the amount of your rent rebate depends on your income. Half of Social Security income cannot be excluded from the calculation. For example, if you receive $20,000 of Social Security, you may only count $10,000 as your income to qualify for the rent rebate. Folks, renters with an annual income of $8,000 or less will receive a rent rebate of $650. So hopefully this can help people out within the stimulus cash. There are billions of dollars in unclaimed money available. Checks are being distributed in varying ways, amounting from 50 to even $10,000. And now, 1 in 7 Americans qualify right now for some extra money. And now, according to Yahoo News, billions of dollars of unclaimed property is being held by state governments for safekeeping, just waiting for Americans to reclaim what's rightfully theirs. And like a giant lost and found, state treasuries look for financial assets, including missed paychecks and utility refunds they've abandoned or forgotten by their owners. Now, often people don't realize that they have unclaimed property but Oregon Treasurer Tobias Reed has announced the agency's plan to return approximately $10 million in unclaimed funds as part of the Checks Without Claims initiative. The effort will be the largest mass disbursement of funds by Oregon's Unclaimed Property program to date. Checks distributed will vary in varying amounts from $50,000 to $10,000. And the New York State Comptroller's Office is also currently holding $18 billion in everyday people's lost money, and it returns $1.5 million to people who file claims daily. And a lot of people are missing out on lots of claim filings. There are over $7 billion sent to go to people in June, and even more is coming. The Biden administration has also approved $20 million in investments to help finance clean energy projects, including installing electric vehicles, charging stations, retrofitting homes to make them energy efficient, and providing communities with battery backup power. Senior officials have said that the investment across 2 grant competitions aims to help communities that have faced historic underinvestment. Even Kamala Harris touted the investment Friday afternoon during an event. She said that the climate crisis is one of the most urgent matters, touching on how the communities in the U.S. are facing droughts, flooding, and even wildfire smoke. The 2 competitions, the National Clean Energy and Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, will allocate $14 to $6 billion for the projects, and the funding is part of the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. It will help so many people, folks. Plus, the White House said that both competitions will focus funding on low-income and disadvantaged communities, including the rural communities. At least 40% of funds in the $14 billion competition and all of the funds in the $6 billion competition will flow to these communities. Kamala Harris even said that the investments will help families' budgets by improving energy-efficient systems and public health by promoting clean energy and utility bills. First of all, the IRS is warning taxpayers about the opening of a 2023 tax filing season that they should expect a smaller refund. It's due to the crisis and the measures expected to expire. So the latest federal stimulus payment went out in 2021. It means that millions of people already received those stimulus payments as a recovery rebate credit that was effectively given as a tax refund. Millions more people received help through the crisis and through the expanded child tax credit. Even though not a lot of people saw this happen. First of all, everybody, the latest federal stimulus payments went out in 2021. Millions of people have more received to help through the crisis through the expanded child tax credit that many progressives saw as an effective and important social safety net. The credit was allowed to expire by Congress, and the IRS said in a news release, due to the tax law, such as the elimination of the child tax credit and no recovery rebate credit this year to claim the crisis stimulus payments, many taxpayers may find the refunds somewhat lower this year. A tax break for charitable deductions was also allowed to expire, which could help affect more taxpayers. Plus, the IRS told the Hill that not all refunds are expected to be approved this year. One of the biggest changes is tax liability, which will result in the expiration from the expanded child tax credit and other things like that, and also dramatically cut into U.S. child poverty rates, reducing them by about 26% per month, or a decline of about 3 million children living above the poverty line. The monthly anti-poverty child tax credits grow over time, as the IRS concluded that more people can actually get stimulus checks. Critics of the expanded credit said it was too expensive to maintain indefinitely, and it was only a temporary measure that was made by the crisis. So folks, here it is. We got some more news about this. Taxpayers claim that earning the income credit was with no choice.
You can now file your taxes on time. The IRS is clearing up some confusion after advising taxpayers to wait to file their tax returns. The agency now says it's decided not to tax most states' stimulus checks from 2022, which had prompted that delay.
Now, of course, there are some exceptions. So the agency says it is best to consult your state and or tax preparer. In all, 21 states issued special relief checks to residents last year for a number of different reasons. For instance, in California, most residents received a middle-class tax refund to offset those record-high gas prices.
Folks, we got a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check and Social Security benefits that you have to know. We got a ton of news just for you, so continue watching this video. You don't want to miss out on this. So folks, I believe that President Biden can make a stimulus check and send it out before the end of the year. Do you believe that he will? Tell me in the comments. There is exciting news. The top Democrats are working together to propose a new relief plan. It will provide millions of families with extra cash every month. These payments could be worth as much as $600. Now, there may be strict requirements for eligibility, and also millions of families benefited by the expanded child tax credit. In order to help out President Biden's trillion-dollar stimulus law, it's a $2 trillion stimulus law. Hundreds of thousands of more employees without dependent children also received increased payments under the law, which increased tax credits going to low and middle income workers. The figures were released by the Biden administration as it neared the first anniversary of the stimulus law, passed a year ago over the unanimous Republican opposition. Biden signed the bill, which also included $1,400 directly to Americans who need it the most. So that's a good way to get started with your fourth stimulus check. So it's good to see people can get stimulus. The fixed payments at the state level. At least 18 states, including California and Florida, have taken a step this year with Congress gridlocked on how to deal with the worst inflation in 4 decades. The law set aside $350 billion in aid for state and local governments aimed at preventing layoffs or big cuts to public services. Few strings were attached to the money to guarantee flexibility, and it largely amounted to a blank check for states and cities. But those fear of job losses and wrecked budgets never materialized, so states spend less than expected. In addition, a report from the National Association of State Budget Officers found nearly all states reported pulling in far more tax revenue than originally forecasted. A growing number are channeling booming budgets into a fresh wave of checks to help middle and low-income families. Ron DeSantis announced early this week that it's using $36 million of American Rescue Plan to issue a $450 check per kid to the poorest families. That's on top of $1,000 cash bonuses to first responders using federal aid in the spring. The source of Florida's next relief check is $1 billion in extra funds through the Crisis Emergency Assistance Program.
Putting pressure on global oil supply, but President Biden is taking historic action to mitigate its impacts on American families. He is releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is a historic action that he's taken. He rallied global partners to release millions of barrels of oil, and under President Biden, U.S. oil production is up and on track to reach a record high. The Treasury Department estimates that the historic release of oil by President Biden and international partners has reduced gas prices by up to about 40 cents per gallon, as we have shared with you all last week. More work remains, but the fact is